I love when it says going live and it does that little swirly thing. It just keeps going
Yeah,
around
exactly.
and
We just go into a
around.
dance until it
And
starts, right?
yeah,
And
that's
then
it.
it's
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of get loose. You know,
do the Saturday dance,
there you
Saturday
go.
dance, Saturday, Saturday, Saturday dance. Oh God, we've been live for like 5 minutes, right?
Yeah, we're already losing it.
Yeah,
Hey,
I got
welcome
the
to the
email.
first layer, everybody. You know that guy. That guy over there. That's Brian over there. That's
Hi
Brian.
everybody, how's it going? Happy Saturday.
How's my audio today, guys? Can you guys hear me okay? You should be able to. I should be coming through loud and clear. We've got a few people say hi to the Nar Fox, Joe Patersi. I messed that up. Paula Tuttle. We've got Eric B. We've got Trevor Rickard, Rex Waldy, Snapshot FPV, Parker Cooper, James Lane, Mark Baker, Joseph Jolly, Ben Brady, 3D Print Viking, HVAC A to Z, Phil Morris, Guy the Jedi, Loch Ness Gaming, Marv Ellis, Robert. Did I say Robert Marvin already? Robert
I
Avery,
don't know. So
14
many people here
Scarecrow,
tonight.
High Tech Redneck, Witch 3733. So we've got your questions from this week, and I know some of them came in prior to the broadcast tonight, up in the chat. We're going to go back and have a look at those really quickly. A few things I want to say first and foremost is thank you to our Patreons. We got a couple people to say hello to and thank them for their $10 support on our Patreon, which is Adam. Let's see here. We got Adam Green. We have Rex Waldy and Wesley Fletcher. Thank you to those guys for being at our top tier, the $10. And they're still waiting on our Discord, which Brian and I have to get together and figure out
And
exactly
formalize it,
how
yeah.
to finally get that thing up. It's set. It's ready to go. We just have to launch it. So we are going to launch it very soon. So then we'll be having weekly talks on there. It'll be open up for people that are just Patreon members at that $10 level to be able to go into the special Patreon room. Anybody else, once we open it up, there'll be a general room as well. People can discuss 3D printing in as well. What else do I got to cover tonight? Oh, guess what I've been doing this week?
Uh-oh. Am I allowed to say that?
I have, let's quickly talk about this before we get to the questions. I have started my OpenRC F1 by Daniel Noré.
Ooh,
And
very nice. Very nice.
I, for the first time in my 3D printing career, printed with TPU.
Ooh.
Believe me, it was not as big as a challenge as I thought it was. I tried putting it through the CR-10S with the Bondtech on it first. I kept getting jams. It kept jamming in the hot end. So then I went, well, this little Anycubic Mega Zero, which I did do a fairly decent review on. I went and looked at that, and I said, it says it can do TPU, so I threw the TPU on it, and guess what? I got my first tire.
Ooh.
Hey, we got a super chat from Rex Waldy. I got to go to that page.
Super chat.
Thank you
Super
very much,
chat.
Rex Waldy. Don't you like that? I spent all day making that one day. Now, here's what.
Sounds
here's
like
the
me
problem that
all
I
day
had.
for a sound effect.
Here's the problem that I had, and I'm going to switch to another camera really quickly here. Let me go to this camera here. All right. So I'm over. No, I didn't switch camera yet.
Nope, wrong one.
There we go. All right, now we're switched. All right. So you can see here, I'm using the cross infill, which is suggested for doing, flexible stuff. But when I squeezed it, you can see I don't have a top on this wheel. Or on this tire, and the reason is because it sheared right off. It wasn't from under extrusion either, just where it started to make the transition into here. I guess it was a little weak, so when I squeezed it, it just came right off. So I will show you guys where I am at with the OpenRC. And let's move that mouse out of the way. So here's where I'm at with the OpenRC. You can see I've got the back end on, and it's got the axle and some tires. I've got the front end steering just about completed. I'm printing some more tires. These are just test tires. I have some black TPU coming in. Yeah, this is going to be a fun project. I thought, I'm going to get started on this now. And that way, by next year, maybe I'll have a car done, and then we can go ahead and start doing, what we always said we wanted to do, and that was RC race cars.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I thought that's kind of a fun little project to do.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's.
I wish I could say I had more fun stuff here. I'm just playing with a new camera. Actually, this is the same camera that you guys have seen me on every week. But James was very excited to bring by and test out this new product from Marantz. So I'll transition over to this camera. And this one here is an all-in-one webcam microphone setup by Marantz. So I'm still recording through the main mic. We've played around with the boundary mic, and based off this room, it would be too echoey for tonight. But it's got a ring light, so that's kind of cool. So I might be bouncing back and forth between the two shots just for comparison. Bear in mind, we're comparing a very expensive SLR camera to a $200 all-in-one setup. But
hey,
you might see me bouncing around a bit tonight. That's why.
Marantz is a great company. I've used their products a lot in the field, when I was doing stuff for bands and things like that. So they've got great products. There's nothing wrong with them. Their professional market is great. Their consumer market has always been a good quality product. So we'll see how that works out. Maybe I'll have to test one myself at some point.
It's a pretty neat little thing, yeah.
Yeah, it looks
if you
really
want to get into YouTube, and
Yeah.
We've obviously upgraded our gear over the years, but I would have killed for something like this instead of spending $100 on a C920 webcam. What can I say?
Yeah, really. All right. Let's start getting into the questions. And first and foremost, we're going to go right back up to the top of the chat. So hold your questions here for a second. Narfox put his question in the chat, but I'm going to get to it right here in our document first. He is right down here. Matt Fox. He says, to the guys and gals at the first layer, looking forward to ask for help tonight since I have a few questions regarding installing a BLTouch on my CR-10S. Number one, 3D Print 3D also has a video on installing the BLTouch on the CR-10, and they plugged in orange, red, and brown wires all into pins in row D11. Does it work either way? Yes, it does, but you have to make sure that your signal pin is on the correct pin, and you can look that up just by finding the board online. It's pretty easy to do. So that should really solve that problem for installing it. It's not very hard to install. There's lots of videos out there. We've done one as well where we put one on the CR-10 as well. So you can check out our video as well. He says, number two, since my probe is mounted to the 3D print direct drive mount to the left of my nozzle, I noticed that the probing happens in the wrong location relative to the nozzle. How can I correct this in Marlin 2.0? What you're going to have to do is set your offsets for where the actual probe is. In Marlin, and I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I just did a video on the firmware for 2.0. You can go and check that out on our or on our Facebook page as well. Can you go over the different type of bed leveling options? Why do you use them and what they do? I still don't really understand the difference between UBL and bilinear. I'm also still unfamiliar with how correctly define how many points it probes, since there's a few different places in the configuration H file where it can be changed. Okay. The differences between, there's 5 different ones. There's auto bed leveling linear, there's bilinear, there is UBL, there's mesh, and there's one other one. And I can't remember what the other one is, but
there's manual.
yes, there's manual. That's it. The fifth one is manual. So when you are going to set it up for a Creality machine, you really want to set that up for bilinear. By trying to use the UBL, what that is it's a combination of bilinear and of mesh bed leveling. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds when you're setting up your bed leveling. However, it doesn't work reliably. It is still something that is happening. Brian, you're winking in and out. Your camera's winking in and out again.
I am looking into it. That's my computer being special. Happy Saturday, everybody.
Happy Saturday. And you've got a more powerful computer than I've got.
Yeah, there's some kind of driver conflict on here. So I'm running a program called Latency Monitor on another screen and trying to figure out which exact driver is causing system interrupted issues. And you wonder why I love software.
Yeah. So as far as the bed leveling goes, and Brian, I think you'll agree with me on this, bilinear is the best to use for a CR10 or any Creality product because UBL, like I said, is still got some funky bugs in it as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't work reliably. So I would just use the bilinear. Basically what that's going to do is still going to create a mesh of the bed. On something as large as the CR10, you can do 3-point bed leveling. It will measure 9 points, but you can go down to the section where it has bilinear and you can tell it to probe 4 or 5. If you go 4, it's going to give you 16 points. If you go 5, it's going to give you 25 points. So go ahead and check that out. I did cover that a little bit in the video that we just dropped on Marlin and the BLTouch. So I encourage you to go and check that video out. If you have any more questions, you know how you can always get a hold of us by checking out questions at thefirstlayer.com. I want to tell you guys that tonight's episode is sponsored by us.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I want to let you know that our store is officially online. We have 3 products up there right now. They are our Star Wars inspired logo shirts for iPrint PLA, iPrint PETG, and iPrint ABS. So if you'd like to get yourself a shirt, the prices are in Canadian prices. If you're local to Calgary, just drop me a line and we'll set you guys up so that you don't have to pay the shipping if you're here in Calgary, and we'll get you guys all sorted out. So, Brian, did you have any other comments on that first question from Matt Fox?
No, you nailed it there. I've tried unified bed leveling. Sorry for the flickering, guys. I don't know what it is. But the UBL, every time I've tried it, it has put the... it's always gone and started probing from the center outwards. It treats that as G0 with my safe bed leveling. So every time I've tried it, just kind of crashes into my exterior boundaries. So I said, forget it. Bilinear is good enough for most people. UBL is good if you want the most complex grid in the world and only want to do a small verification once in a while. It's more than I need. And I've got a pretty big bed at a CR-10S V2. So if you want to experiment with it, go for it. It's a little bit better, I think, when you're manually adjusting each point. But if you get a BLTouch dialed in, bilinear should be accurate enough, or you really need to work on your base bed leveling.
All right. So our next question comes from Joe Patersi, or Patersi. I'm butchering that last name. I'm pretty sure of it. He says, "Hi, I need help. 2 identical Ender 3 Pros, same STL, same settings, but one has elephant's foot, leveled bed, calibrated E-steps, checked flow rate. Any other ideas?" I would say if you're getting an elephant's foot, chances are you're too close to the bed still. It can be just microns, which can make up that difference. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely. Elephant's foot is, of course, the result of over extrusion at the base layers, which usually means that your bed leveling, even though it is printing on the surface successfully, it's still a little too close on there. And so you're going to get a lot of bowing. And as the layers build up, you're going to get more and more build up on there because it doesn't know, hey, there's not enough. It's going to keep on trying to feed at the same rate. Some people, if their extruders are dialed in, it'll result in clicking. If you have it a little bit higher voltage that can handle that torque, it's going to try its darndest to shove that filament out onto that bed, and so that will result in a lot of bowing. So it's the first layer is always your foundation to a great print, right? That's our slogan here. So if you're too high, it's not going to stick. If you're too low, it'll stick just the same as if it's at the right level, but you're going to get that bowing. So
Yeah.
and bed leveling will change between each print. That's why we have baby stepping in firmware, for instance, is because there might be a slight deviation in how it interpreted your home point. So I'm sorry, did he say it's two separate printers or it's the same printer?
It's two separate printers. They're both the same make and model. Both are working. Just one is giving him elephant's foot. The other one is not. So
Yeah, try and adjust your bed leveling then just a little bit more. If you're tightened all the way down, just take a look at your Z end stop positions and make sure they're bolted in at the same point, because I've made the mistake of mounting it too high or too low once in a while as well.
all right, so we've got one here from Eric B. He says, I just dropped in an SKR E3 dip with the 2209 version 1.2 drivers, and my Z-axis now doesn't work. No sound coming from motor. Limit switches are working, and wiring is good as well. I'm going to give this one to you, Brian.
Okay, so if the way to diagnose this is as follows. Try and move the Z up. You have to initiate that in the firmware just by doing a move, just so that it activates the motors. Once you've activated it and told it to move a couple of millimeters, go to the back and wiggle your coupler back and forth, or see if you can. If it's holding hard in place, then it's doing some kind of movement and the stepper's holding it. If it's completely loose, one of two things are happening. Either your coupler has come loose, as I found this week with my second one, or your cable is not properly connected, because even having the coils hooked up in the wrong order will result in some form of holding of that stepper. So if you are able to move that stepper freely, then that means there's no power at all going through all those data lines. So you'll need to go and check your stepper motor, make sure that your not dip switches, but your jumpers. Your jumpers are in the correct position for an SP or not. I'm so sorry, guys. UART. As long as it's configured for the UART configuration for that board, which I believe was only one jumper. I could be wrong on that.
Third jumper down. Yeah.
Third jumper down. There you go.
Yeah.
Make sure it's configured for that. Make sure the firmware is set up for it. And then just check your cables, because it sounds like the cable has come disconnected, honestly, somewhere down the line. That's my experience. How about yourself, Richard?
I think you're probably very right about that. Usually if it's not moving, chances are the coupler is come loose off of the shaft of the motor. It's usually what happens. But if it is a cable, you can probably change the cable. I would say Brian's hit the nail on the head. Just make sure that all your stepper drivers are in correctly, and that all of your jumpers are set correctly for the stepper drivers that you're using. And make sure that in the firmware, you have changed it to 2209s, because I found this out the hard way, that if you don't take out the two little slashes in front of the stepper driver when you're telling it what stepper drivers you want to use, you can cause serious problems to your machine or in the way that it operates, because it gets confused.
Was that the issue with yours this week?
Yep. I forgot to take those out.
Yeah, Marlin 2.0, kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time, is that they've actually amalgamated all those configuration settings for your steppers right down to a single setting per stepper. So you're going to search for a section called, just search up A4988, because that's what they all are by default. And then you have to uncomment that, and depending on your stepper type, if you type in TMC 2208, it will activate all the trinamic settings and all the trinamic stepper timings.
Yes.
If you don't do that, and believe me, this is true, the motors will still turn, because they don't know that they're not Trinamics. The difference is Trinamics, when you install them and you define them as a non-UART stepper, like as a what we would call a dumb stepper, it will actually travel double the distance. And so even though you have safe homing enabled, it'll fly right off the bed and crash into your maximum limits. So, it's, as I said, it's a blessing on how to turn on that setting. Everything looks good. So,
All right, we're going to answer this one from Paula Tuttle really quickly, and then we'll get back to the ones that came in via email. Paula Tuttle says, I need a new board for my Ender 3, and I'm trying to pick between the SKR Pro 1.1 or the SKR 1.4 Turbo. Do you have any recommendations? Should I be looking at an entirely different board? Personally, if you're putting it in an Ender, I wouldn't put in the Pro or the 1.4 Turbo. I would go with either the E3 Dip or the Mini E3. The reason that I would go with those two is because they are ready made to drop right into place on the Ender 3. What about you, Brian?
yeah, you can't argue with these SKR boards for the most part. I'm having some issues with my bigger machines and some buffering issues, but I believe it's actually software and not the platform issues. But the E3 Dip, which is my preferred board over the Mini, as I can swap out steppers, it really is a drop-in replacement, and it even screws into CR10s with a bit of modifications. So if your goal is a drop-in place board, I have yet to see competition apart from that. I have not tried the Creality Silent board that was designed for the Ender 3, but it's more expensive than the E3 board. It's still an 8-bit board, and I like the dips because if you smoke out the steppers on the Mini 1.2 or on the Creality board, you're out a new board versus a $15 stepper replacement.
Exactly. Let's get to a question from Dominic this week. He says, hi, folks. I can't seem to solve a warping problem with PLA. I'm printing at 250 on the bed. On the Creality glass bed, I use the Easy ABL with the offset properly set. The brim prints fine. 2 hours or so into the print, the part will rip away from the brim in order to warp. The brim remains stuck fast to the bed. It seems to occur mostly with parts with flat bottoms that are larger than 3 inches or so. I printed lots of those ear saver bands with no trouble. 7 up on the Ender 3 bed. They stuck to the bed just fine. Thanks for all that you do. I'll be signing up if you have a Marlin and Cura classes. Well, we are going to be doing Marlin and Cura classes very, very soon. We're going to be launching LearnTheFirstLayer.com, which was a nice segue. LearnTheFirstLayer.com. We'll be launching for pre-sign up for our first course in mid-June. So I just want to give you guys, it's actually launching on the 15th of June. So there'll be a 30-day sign-up period. We are partnering with another company for the hardware that we are going to be using in those classes. I can't tell you who they are just yet, but we will be announcing that in the weeks to come. So if you're getting warping problems with PLA, I would up the temperature of the PLA. It sounds to me like what's happening here is that the area that is sitting on the bed that's starting to warp up and pull away from the brim, if they're 3 inches or bigger, you should have enough flat surface area that you don't need a brim for starters. And secondly, I would just up the temperature by 5 degrees on the printing nozzle. What would you say to that, Brian?
Yeah, I agree with you fully there. Brims are a great way to kind of anchor to the bed, but really you shouldn't be using that to anchor it on the first few layers. If you're doing a very, very large print and you need a little bit of wiggle room for anchoring, then yeah, it makes sense. But for small stuff, it all comes down to that bed adhesion, right? And again, a lot of my issues that I've encountered, was if I had bad bed adhesion, I could overcome it by completely squishing it against the bed. But then that also causes warpage in itself because it has further layers where the nozzle is very close to that base layer, and PLA benefits from rapid cooling. A lot of people will show you that just to get it melted on that first layer, have the fan off, but then after that, get your fan on full speed. And that's the reason
Absolutely.
why, is because the elements, as I said, they like to soak down, and they warp from too rapid cooling. PLA is the exact inverse. So learn to focus on your cooling. If you need to lay it down quick, that's great. But sometimes, especially with small items, your initial layers are also very thin and quick. So look into slow down features too, so that your minimum layer time is 20 to 30 seconds.
Agreed. Now, this is the other thing that you can use right there. This is the
Absolutely.
Elmer's purple glue stick. This is what I use. I've never, ever once had a problem with this stuff causing any, or it doesn't allow anything to warp. It works great on glass. It works great on several different surfaces. But this is my go-to right here, purple glue stick. I want to answer a question that we kind of missed here from Kim Madsen. Says, hi again, you two. Happy Saturday to you. Do you have time to see my question from last time about the really good DIY 3D printer? I had to be top NOC and have a big bill plate. Sorry for my English. Kim Madsen, yes, actually, your question is coming up. Funny enough,
Let's
it is.
fly to it.
We'll dive right into it because there's a fairly long questions coming up for Brian here really quick. Kim says, hello again here from Denmark. Hello in Denmark. Glad to see that we have fans in Denmark. I have a question for you. They have the Artillery X1 that they print on right now. They would like to have a bigger build plate because their build volume is 300 by 300 by 400. They would like to go to a DIY kit that has 700 by 700 or maybe 1,000 by 1,000. Now, as far as kits go that big, I don't know many companies that actually put one out that big. You may want to go to, and this would be my first place to go to, would be Open Builds, and look at the 3D printing section on Open Builds. There is usually a great wealth of information on much larger machines, whether you want to do a Core XY or you want to do something that has a much bigger build volume. Usually anybody who's doing a project like that has everything laid out for them. They lay out all their bill of materials and they lay out design specs and so on and so forth for you. They even a lot of times will give you links to different places that you can go to find the materials you're looking for. So that would be my first option for you, is to go and check over on Open Builds. What would you say to that, Brian?
Yeah, the just exploring this over the past couple of years, most of the Core XY kits that are being sold, at least in the Asian markets and so forth, max out at roughly about a 300 by 300 by 400.
Yeah.
And then when you're going bigger into that, you're going into custom designs. Just from experience, even seeing the Hypercube, a lot of those projects are going to 30/30 extrusion, just based off that build volume. And as you go bigger and bigger, you're going to have to increase your frame. And when you get to 40/40 extrusion, for instance, a lot of that is quite customized to the job. So I personally haven't seen anything in the consumer space that big. Right now I have my CR-10S running at 500 by 500 by 800. But past that, I've only seen a couple of builds that go beyond that 500 cubed build volume. So if you're going to go that route, you're going to have to go custom. You might want to get in touch with the Hypercube Evolution developer on Thingiverse and find out if he's heard word of anyone building something that big, because his design has a calculator which tells you every single piece to buy, to print, and all the links based off your build volumes. So that's definitely a project we've wanted to check out, but it just didn't come to fruition this year.
Benny Brady was saying that the Modex has a kit that big. I know Modex has some very big printers. I didn't know that they were kits. I thought that they all already came pre-assembled. But yes, definitely check out Modex. They are online as well. They're fair price for something that big, though. Just to, 4Vision Tech in Calgary has the Modex They have the 60 by 30, 60 by 60. Yeah, they have a big Modex
What was
there.
that? We were up there, and they were selling that for what, $5,000,
Yeah, it's
something
about
like
five
that. That,
grand Canadian. So what that would be
and
in Denmark, I have no idea.
yeah, I'm not sure, but it's not cheap if you're going to go for a pre-build. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I personally don't think anyone should go beyond 500 by 500 by 500 in the consumer space because you really need a lot of filament
Yeah,
and failures are much more costly.
they are for sure. Let's tackle this next one here from Jim in Australia. Well, welcome, Jim from Australia. He says, Dear Richard and Brian, I have two distinct dual gear extruders on my G-Tech A20M. The right one was calibrated to 409.3 E-steps value, and the left one was calibrated to 140.1 E-steps. My problem is when I try to use the left extruder, it seems to use the right extruder's E-step value, even though I've specified define E factors and define default axis steps per unit. So I get over extrusion big time. I'm using Cura 4.6.1. The G-Tech A20M extruders are right to left, tool 0 and tool 1. The values are stored in the EEPROM when I check the interface as M92 and E409.30 and M92 T1 is E140.10. So I can't color mix until I sort this out. Much appreciated any help. That I haven't had much experience with that. What about you, Brian?
Well, the distinct E factor is a newish feature in Marlin 2.0. I personally actually don't have that running on my two machines yet, though the one machine that I have that's dual extruder has been on the back burner for a while, and it uses the same E steps, so that has not been an issue. What I would check, because bear in mind this is all still in development, the first thing I would check is your pin configuration within Marlin on the back end. It's a pins.h, and it's a little tricky to drill down, I won't lie to you. But just verify the locations in memory are the exact same for where they're actually mapped out on the board, because and that's the question really is it extruding the correct extruder when you define it? And in all honesty, if it's just a matter of those two being swapped, it might be a bug in Marlin. Have you considered just swapping the two values on your default axis steps per unit at this stage? Because if that's now, if you're telling me that they're both using 409.3 instead of 409 and 140, then it sounds to me like you've actually found a Marlin bug. And so if you haven't already, step one is there's a Discord for Marlin where you can live chat with the developers and say, hey, this is happening. Is this a known issue? Should I file that as a bug? Or if somebody has a workaround, that's the quickest way to get an answer. If that's not going anywhere, it's advisable to open up a ticket on GitHub. You upload your configuration files and describe what's happening. And they're pretty prompt on trying to find a fix. I know I've had some quite wild threads where I made a post and I wake up in the morning with 80 email responses. So help is out there. Maybe send us a little follow-up. Let us know in detail what exactly is happening there. Unfortunately, I don't have the means to validate that on my side for you, though.
All right, so we got a quick question here from Trevor Rickard. He says, hey, got a quick question for you all. Is it possible for me to get dual extrusion on my CR-10S with a single nozzle? Yes, it is, and it's not easy.
Nope.
You could go to a Cyclops extruder or a Cyclops hot end, pardon me, from E3D. You're going to have to print some mounts for it. And then you will have to add a secondary extruder. You'll have to do some work in Marlin to get that secondary extruder working. But yeah, you can do it. It's just not easy to do. KKP 3D. What's that?
Something messy, right?
Yeah.
He's going to have to do a board swap too, because
you may have to do a board swap because I don't think there's a second extruder on that board that you can tap into.
There's a header for it, and if you feel like soldering the chip, you can do it. And I think TH3D sells a board that has it soldered in there, but at that stage, it's going to be a messy process. You're
Yeah.
almost better to buy a multi-material unit like a mosaic almost at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. You might as well.
Yeah.
KKP3D says, I put a Chimera on my Ender 5 in Marlin. I changed one thermistor setting, E-step settings, probe offset settings, BLTouch, and minor changes in bed size. Is there anything else that I need to do in Marlin? You shouldn't have to do anything else. I think that pretty much covers it.
Make sure safe homing is enabled anytime you
yes.
enable the BLTouch. It should. I don't know why it's not automatically enabled, but maybe that's a feature they can add in the future there. But safe homing is required for the BLTouch. Otherwise, on any Creality printer, it's going to home to X0, Y0, which is off the bed, and you're going to slam your nozzle right into your corner of your bed.
Yeah, exactly. Ben Brady says, easier to buy a Copy Master 300 V2. I'm not sure. I missed something in the chats here because I'm going back and forth.
All right. I think he's talking about the dual version maybe there.
Oh, okay. There we go. All right. So now we are pretty much through the questions. We're over the halfway mark. I want to remind you guys that Super Chat is turned on. If we've answered your question, it's always appreciated if you drop us a little bit something, because it goes to helping us out with materials and getting in new products to test for you. Because now that the studio is at home, I don't have quick access to the products that I used to have that I could show you. So we've got a lot of great things coming up for you. Very soon you're going to see our review on a resin printer. It's not a new resin printer, but it's been out for a while. This one comes from Phrozen. It's the Sonic Mini. I've been playing with it a little bit. You guys are going to see that. We've got a brand new printer coming from our good friends at Lotmaxx. They reached out to me. We're going to be testing out their new printer very, very soon. And we've got a few other printers on the way as well that we're going to be checking out and giving you guys our yay or nay on. And we may be doing something with another company here locally very soon as well. So we're going to just see where we lie with that. So as far as everything goes, what's that?
I'm so amazed. I was going to say, without going into specifics about that, just entering myself into the world again, I have been shocked at who has been receptive into introducing 3D printing into their world. And we're going to see that a lot more going forward with businesses introducing either a 3D printer in their office as an extra offering, or if they're doing prototyping in engineering firms. And we're seeing this adoption that honestly I expected to come probably 2-3 years ago, but now we're seeing it much more in the consumer space. And, part of me is shaking my fist because they're the ones causing PLA to be $30-something a kilo. I mean, I just got a $500 order and I wish it was double that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, me too.
It's cool. I'm hoping this moving forward works out, because there's a group of people I have known for a long time and I've enjoyed everything they do.
Yeah, me too. And I look forward to doing some work with them here in the very near future. Dominic Versetto, he says, is a feeler gauge better than paper? In all honesty, I have used both, and I think I get a better result with paper, to be perfectly honest with you. I find with a feeler gauge, I can get too close to the bed, and I can still get that feeler gauge under just because of the nature of the way that the feeler gauge is, and it's really stiff. So it's easy to get underneath that hot end. So with a piece of paper, if you're too tight, you'll feel it. It'll either rip the paper or you won't be able to push it back underneath. So I always find a piece of paper is much better than a feeler gauge.
I would say
James Lane says something completely different.
Yeah, basically a feeler gauge is going to give you an extremely accurate measurement, but you don't always want the Z0 to actually be Z0, right? So what I'd suggest is you do the paper test with your nozzle on one point, and then move the feeler gauge, get it in where that nozzle was. And the best way is mark your paper before you do your feeler gauge. Move your nozzle to that position, and then move the feeler gauge over that position and see what the measurement is. Now take that measurement, and you can go around your bed and still do the paper check, but you can fine tune it with your feeler gauge, because now you have a point of reference. And that's the biggest challenge with balancing each bed, is have a singular point of reference. Because if you keep going around in circles, a million times, and that's why we advise the crisscross method on the bed
Mm-hmm.
is you're always changing your point of reference.
Yeah.
So you can have a single fixed point, stick with it.
Ben is asking, is Spool 3D still in business? Yes, Spool 3D is still in business. They have been running nonstop since the pandemic started. Yes, they've had low stock since the pandemic started. They've been doing some very good business. I just haven't been there for reasons that I can't get into. But yeah, it's been great. They've been still moving. They're still moving ahead. They're still doing great business. So yes, they are still in business. I'm just not there because of the pandemic, or at least partly because of the pandemic. Like I said, I can't get into the specifics, but know that that they are still in business, and we still support what they do. So.
And for the sake of it, I mean, we've always done the Friday stream or the Saturday streams here from our homes because for Richard and I both, it's a 35+ minute drive to get down to the studio at 7 p.m. on a weekday or on a weekend, and then all the way back. And gas was briefly cheap there, but on average, and even in oil country, it's $4 a gallon. So, to come down for a 1 hour show doesn't make sense. And we found that we've got the setups that we can shoot our own episodes individually and then collaborate, especially with this pandemic now, versus us having to be in the same room and operate a cameraman and so forth. So in a way, it kind of forced ahead our plans, but our intentions always were to set up unique studios in multiple places there. So you'll probably be seeing a lot more of this homestead and that.
There you go. Yeah. You're going to see a lot more of our homesteads and our home offices because we're going to be doing a lot more from home. And, that's kind of why we changed things, just to kind of hit this topic a little bit. That's why we changed things, and we've launched our own store now. We're no longer using Teespring, although that Teespring store is still open. We are going to be shutting it down very soon. We have 3 t-shirts at shopthefirstlayer.com right now. It is all in Canadian pricing. Again, like I said, if you're local to Calgary and you want to get a shirt and you don't want to pay the Canada Post ridiculous pricing on the Canada Post shipping, then I would encourage you just to get in touch with us, and we'll reverse the charges on shipping, and we'll make an arrangement for you to pick it up. We are having the shirts printed locally. They're done on high quality Gildan 5100% cotton shirts, and the lettering on them is a vinyl lettering that is professionally done, so you have no worries of it coming apart or falling apart on you in a short period of time like you would with cheaper brands. So we really did our research. We got a good company here locally working with us to do the shirts, and we're going to expand that. You'll find ebooks up there not too long from now, and we're going to expand our t-shirt offerings, and we will get mugs and things as we move forward. But bear in mind that we are still small, and we don't want to put out so much right away that we can't handle everything. We're going to do this in stages so that we can handle things slowly but surely. Hey, there's a super chat.
Super chat.
From Adam Green.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. He says, after updating to a Bondtech BMG, I have constantly been getting jams. The last one killed my Micro Swiss. What do you need to be careful about using in general extruder that I need to be aware of? It's going to be E-steps, Adam, for sure.
Well, there are a couple of issues, and I'm sorry. I tried the Bondtech and it had a lot of issues for me. But the simple answer is the Bondtech has, when you have a ratio of 1:3 on your geared extruder, the motor has to turn 3 times faster to extrude the same amount, which is why you go from 135 to 410, I believe it is.
Yeah.
But
like that.
But as a result of it spinning faster, you actually get a much higher torque. And I want to say the torque is 3 times higher, but I could be wrong on that too. So what's going to happen is if you are moving filament hard through that and there's any kind of blockage in your nozzle, that that thing is going to keep on chunking, and it will find ways to compress filament in ways you thought were never possible. Things like it's spooling up inside a Bowden connector. And that was my experience. So I've tried multiple things, but unfortunately, at least in the way that they implemented on the BMG system for the Creality systems, I had a lot of troubles. Now, when I looked back at the base design of it, it was designed to run in the opposite orientation, and you would mount an E3D V6 hot end into the Bondtech itself rather than that little tapered Bowden feeder. And unfortunately, I've tried to work with the company. I wasn't getting the results I expected from them. It just resulted in filament getting jammed in an area that was not designed to be serviced. And so it took me hours to do it. It was just easier for me to put that mechanism to the side and go to either a knockoff Creality dual gear extruder or go to a standard metal single-sided gear system. How about you, Richard?
I would agree with you 100% on what you just said, because I've had problems with mine as well. Mine's not the BMG. Mine is the CR-10 upgrade one, and I had a few problems. And it is 415 is the E-steps that you have to go to.
Right.
So, yeah. First and foremost, we got one of these.
Super chat.
From John Kitchen.
Thanks, John. Really appreciate it. You guys can ask questions if you want to send a super chat. We appreciate the donation. But if you're going to jump the line, you might as well throw something else, even a terrible question.
Hey, Len Gore. Len Gore's got a quick question here, and then we're going to get to our last one in our emails. How do you fix the center of your bed if all four corners are set right using the paper, but the center won't stick while printing? I'll tell you exactly how to do that. Put a little piece of tape in the center of your bed underneath your glass. It will push it up enough that you should be fine. That's the easy and quick way to fix it.
Yeah, bed leveling, that's the challenge, right? The whole reason all these ABL sensors exist is because there are little bugs out there with this stuff, right? So, I'm sorry, I'm hitting power switches here, so cameras are... But even your best piece of steel will have minor defects in it, and unfortunately, the only way to resolve that is by a thicker sheet or a better quality metal, and you're not going to see it on these consumer products. So for the time being, as Richard said, put a piece of tape, put a piece of tin foil, something thin that you can go in there and adjust it. Now, if it's the case that your center is too high, that's a little bit different. You're going to have to go and try to pull out the outsides and hope that the center will sag.
Yeah.
But Ben, I believe, and a couple other people have been asking, what is the build surface there? I don't believe I've seen an answer. Okay, Len's also ordered a PEI sheet. That's a great option because that will offer a bit more flexibility. And PEI, especially when dealing with PLA, it binds a lot better to that surface, so it's a lot more tolerant to a change in Z height based off your base layer. So if your deviation is 0.05 millimeters or so, it won't even show with the PEI because it will stick even if it's extruding a bit too high or a bit too low.
All right, so let's get to our last question in the emails for this week, and then we will get back to some questions here over in the chat. Last question is for Brian from Bill Ortel Jr. I'm going to let you take this one.
Okay, so Bill wrote, well, Brian, this is attempt number 8 or maybe 15. I like your count. Mine's off like that too. Have I froze?
Nope, you're just kind of stuttering a little.
Okay, let me just kick this power supply out. There we go. Let's do that. Okay, let's try that again. This is attempt number 8 or maybe 15. It's better than the last time. They came up with 13 pages of errors. So this is a Marlin compilation issue, as you can tell, because who doesn't get 13 pages of issues? Went and got the pre-configured files that we linked. Thing that ticks me off, it doesn't give you the line of the code you need to fix. It's like, here's what's wrong, now you find it. Welcome to the world of programming.
Yep.
So he's provided a big list of errors, and what I wanted to give everyone the gist of is whenever you receive an error when compiling code, unfortunately the code is going to continue to try and compile the remainder of it to find out how many errors you have in your program. However, what's going to happen is it's going to find one error, and then that's going to cascade to multiple other errors of the instance being missing. So, there's an old song that goes, three compile errors of your program, three compile errors. You take one down, fix it, and now you got 597 errors. That's the
Isn't there a
non-copyright.
beer song like that too?
Yeah.
Take one down, pass it around.
Except if it worked like encoding, we'd be riddled when crawling on the floor at this stage.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
So basically, the list of errors you provided me, Bill, the top error, which is always the one you should look at, you fix that error, recompile, and move on to the next. That's rule of code. The top error is error X home bump millimeters was not declared in this scope. So the simple answer for this is that there is a change in how that parameter is used right now between Marlin 2.0.5.3 and Marlin bug fix 2.0.x. So if you are running Marlin 2.0.5.3, then I believe it's configuration advanced, I could be wrong on that, the home bump millimeter, there it is defined as X underscore home underscore bump, Y underscore home underscore bump, and Z underscore home underscore bump. They're all grouped together under config advanced. So look up bump underscore MM in your config advanced. If you're running the latest bug fix, one of the changes they've made, and this is what, unfortunately, it looks like the error checking that they've written for this didn't make it clear, is that the newer versions of Marlin have converted that to an array. And so on the newer versions, just as home bump millimeter and then some squiggly brackets with your X, Y, and Z. So maybe I'll get you to send us an email with your config and config advanced files and let us know which version of Marlin you're trying to configure for, if you're trying to build on the release 2.0.5.3 or if you're trying to do it on the latest bug fix. And based off that, we'll be able to tell you what changes there are. This is the unfortunate thing about trying to keep up with Marlin right now is anytime a new version comes out, there might be variable name changes. And so you cannot always copy forward your config and config advanced to the latest version, hit compile, and expect it to compile. It's something that I'm hoping will stabilize a bit in the future, but based off the development nature of 2.0, it's always changing.
Okay, we got time for a couple more questions here tonight. So Tanner 3D says, I have a CR-10S V2 with a Bondtech direct drive upgrade, and I love it. Haven't had one bit of problem with it. Well, that's awesome.
That's great.
Thumbs up for you, man.
3.
Parker Cooper, he says, I'm getting warping from gold PLA. I'm running the same print with purple, no problem. And that's going to be a temperature issue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, each piece of PLA has a different printing parameter. You're going to have to go way back into our history, but we got a video on printing a temperature tower, which we advise you do with every new reel of filament. Even if it's the same manufacturer and same color, it's going to save a lot of headaches.
You bet. Yeah, I think that that's the best way to go. And every time that you get a brand new roll of filament, always do a temperature tower. It is essential for you to getting good prints more of the time than you wouldn't. If you're experiencing warping, it's definitely a temperature issue when you're getting good results with one color and not with the other. So I would definitely go and do a temperature tower first, find out where your temperature is the best for that particular product, and then just make a note of it in a book or keep that temperature tower sample and go ahead, and that will tell you a whole lot of information that you can keep handy for the next time you buy it.
Here's your pro tip. Go to Staples and buy yourself a package of mailing labels, and when you have that number, write it down, stick it to the reel.
Yes. Okay, so we got time for maybe 2 more questions here. Paul Cumber actually asks, how do you unjam a nozzle? This is a pretty easy one, and there's a few other people that are kind of following up on that. The best way to do it, I find, is make sure that you heat up your nozzle to as high a temperature as it's going to go. Leave it there for, 3-4 minutes. Let it cook whatever is inside, and it is going to push out as much material as it can. Remove the Bowden tube if you're on a Bowden setup, and then get a piece of piano wire or a very, very small, thin piece of metal and push it down through there, push out any material that might be in there. Then let your machine cool back down, reload your filament, and try again. That's the best way I've found to do it. What about you, Bri?
I've done the atomic cold pulls before. I have with an all metal heat break. I have 2 successes there. The first one is using nylon filament. You get that nice and hot and let it cool, and as you pull it out, it stretches and pulls any little particulate stuck to it. And then the other one, which it kind of surprised me how well it worked. I bought about 100 grams of monoprice cleaner filament, and various manufacturers make this stuff. I've thrown that through my machines a couple times. You only need about 10 to 12 inches to flush through it, but I've found it definitely strips out a lot of little gunky pieces in a nozzle if it's not already cleared. But if you have a full clog you can't flow it through, Richard's got the right idea. Try to let it naturally seep through. Just don't go too high, because PLAs can sometimes crisp up a bit, and then you have to go to the cold pull methods, which I had never had any success with PLA doing cold pulls, but if you can get a cheap chunk of nylon filament, it'll melt at around that 240 mark. Mm-hmm. And then when you pull that out, it kind of stretches. It's a very stretchable filament. So it kind of peels off. How would you describe that? Almost like a silly putty sort of thing.
It's kind of like a silly putty, yeah, because it'll grab that old material and it'll pull it out with it. So you'll get all the little gunks and flakes of stuff that might be built up in there, and it will come out. I want to recognize this from Joseph Jolly.
Super chat.
Thank you very much for the $9.99. Joseph, we do always appreciate it. And we are coming to the end of the show. If we didn't get to your question this evening, I do apologize. Please go ahead and send it to us at questions@thefirstlayer.com. And I'm just going to pull up that page right now. Let's cut to that. There we go. And I'll make sure that Brian's audio is still turned on. If you've got questions, this is how we normally answer questions. Just drop us a line to questions@thefirstlayer.com. We go through them every week, and we put them into a document that Brian and I and my wife can share, and we try and get to those questions are our priority. The questions that come in through chat, of course, take secondary. We try and mix them up, so we're grabbing from the same hat. What do you think about that, Brian?
Oh, absolutely. We go back and forth, but you know what? If you send a little bit of money our way, we'll make sure to prioritize you.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to solicit anything, but if you ask a question on there with that, we're not going to blow you off for a bit. So
yeah, that's true. I do want to thank everybody who helped us out with Super Chats tonight. We hope that you got something out of tonight's show. If you did, drop us a thumbs up if you liked tonight's episode, and also leave a comment down below. Let us know what you want us to do here on the show. If you've got something you want to see us do here on the show, put it in the comments down below, because we do read the comments. We don't always answer them, but we do read them. So it is great for you guys to either use the comments, use questions. I know some people send it to my own personal email, and that's fine too, but questions@thefirstlayer.com are the places to go. If you want to support the show, you can do so by picking up some of our merch. We've got our t-shirts, our Star Wars inspired t-shirts. I print PLA, I print ABS, and I print PETG up on shop.thefirstlayer.com, and we do hope that you guys will go over and check that out. Again, if you're local to Calgary and you don't want to pay the shipping, we will make an arrangement for you to come and grab it here, or if I'm out and about, I can always drop it off to you.
Oh, another super chat.
Hey, Phil Kinane, I hope I got that right. Super chat right at the end of the show. Thank you very much, everybody. Brian, I'm going to go back to you or us. Here we go. Brian's showing off our new website. Maybe let me just put Brian all the way up here. There we go. So there is
Ken Boyd, I'll request to the First Layer soon.
Yeah, there's our lovely Jess Corniching sporting our iPrint ABS t-shirt. And those are the 3 t-shirts we currently have available. They're available in everything from small all the way to 5X. Once you get up to the 2X and higher, it is a little bit more money. So these are all in Canadian prices. So if you are a US or across the pond and you want to get one of these, we will certainly get you one. All right. So with that said, thank you everybody for tuning in to our show this evening, and we love you. Hey, there's Brian. Brian's on the show.
Hey, hello, I'm back. Yes.
There we are. So, Brian, what do you want to say before we jump out of here tonight?
Thanks for everyone showing up tonight. It's always a nice relief to get away and not worry about my printer for an hour or so after losing a 4-day print by breaking a wire on a stepper. Yeah, it's we're all in this together. We all have the failures, and you may not see it on camera for all of us, but we all work together as a community and get the solutions. So, thanks for asking for our advice, and be sure to pop them up in the Facebook group. And, maybe I'll start posting some of my issues, even though I know some people just say, what are you doing?
I've been there too. So until we see you guys next week, we'll see you on Wednesday with a brand new episode. I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's going to be a surprise. We're going to do some more on the computer this week, and maybe we'll get in some project stuff here a little bit later in the summer. And until we see you guys next time, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. Love y'all. We'll see you next week.
Bye. See you Saturday.